again, I've been touting this since I met y'all. Combined, almost 120 years experience.
Guys, it
in
hasn't
the
been that
music
long.
business.
Holy cow.
And everything they do is in one take. It's incredible. Y'all wouldn't believe it.
I wouldn't believe it, that's for sure.
You apparently have never worked with Mike Sauce.
So we're in the DFW Metroplex, and you were born here. You were born in Fort Worth, right?
Yeah, I was born in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
I grew up in Denton, though. I mean,
Right.
we only stayed in Fort Worth just for a little bit. And then my family moved to Denton. I stayed there most of my high school years.
Yeah. So born here, raised here, still here. There's a story there somewhere, and we're definitely going to unpack that as we talk.
Okay.
Mike's history is a little bit different. He was an Air Force brat and
That's right.
born in Germany.
I was born in Wiesbaden, Germany, only because my dad was actually stationed in Chaumont, France.
Right.
And my mom didn't want to have me in a field hospital.
Right.
Which was a tent.
So they drove y'all to a real military.
They didn't drive us. My dad flew us.
Flew y'all.
Because my dad was a pilot
Yeah.
in World War II. So, and this was after World War II, and not that long after World War II. But
so they were already teaching you bouginess.
I guess.
No field hospital's good for my son.
Well, it's just my mom didn't. She wanted a real, what she thought was a real doctor.
Yeah, I understand.
A real operating room, that sort of thing. So. That's what happened. I was born in Wiesbaden, Germany. I still have a German birth certificate, and I had to be naturalized at age 14.
And so, prior to military service, where were they from? Your mom and dad?
My mom and dad were from Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay,
and
out there in the middle of the woods.
Actually, my mom was from about maybe 80 or 90 miles from there, in a little town called Colebia, Mississippi.
I know where that is.
Do you really?
I do. I was stationed in Meridian for a while.
Okay, yeah. Well,
so I did a little Mississippi time back in the day.
Colebia is a little tiny town, and up until, just a few years before my mom passed away, they still had a 40-acre farm in Colebia, Mississippi.
Wow.
And that wasn't being worked or anything like that, but, yeah, it's a little bitty town. I know that when I went there, really the first time when I was about 10 years old, we had just come back from Japan, and my grandfather had passed away, so we went straight to the house so we could be with them. And I'd never really been on a farm. I'd always been on an air base.
Mm-hmm.
And, man, there was cows and horses and mules, and my grandmother came out.
We're checking gearboxes, were you?
I was checking gearboxes then. And anyway, my grandma took me outside and she said, "Come on, son, you're going to learn to cut some okra." So I cut okra, and we had because they farmed the land, and they ate what they farmed.
Right.
And they didn't even have electricity then. They had oil lamps the first time I went there.
Wow.
They got electricity later.
Yeah, and you had to walk in the snow
uphill both ways
to come back from that farm.
That's exactly right. We all walked uphill both ways.
That's right.
That's right. My dad used to say that all the time. And then he would literally take me to the uphill both ways, and it was true somehow. But, I love the story. I'll get to your story about your first guitar in a minute, man. I woke my wife up because of that story, just me chuckling. At 3:00 in the morning, she's like, "No research after midnight." And let's talk about early influences when it comes to music, because that can have a huge role in how you're shaped later on when you decide to make this your thing, right? Because at some point in time in your lives, you both decided this was more than a hobby. So what was the shaping like for that early on for both of y'all?
Well, honestly, I started when I was about 14.
Right.
And to be truthful, I was watching Ed Sullivan when the Beatles came on, and I'm thinking, hey, those guys are skinny and pimply. So am I. Look at all those girls going crazy. I got to learn how to do this.
Yeah, it's about the girls.
So that's when I put my first band together called the G's.
Okay.
And we actually ended up having a single on the radio, KLIF, back in those days.
So I got to tell a little bit of a funny story about the G's, too, because the G's was just the letter G.
Correct.
With the S. Mm-hmm. And that was short for guys.
That's right.
And guys is already super short, Bubba.
Man, you busted me. Actually, my dad was our manager at the time. He said, "Hey, man, let's call it the G's instead." We said, Okay.
I was reading that. And I was like, we started a band called the G's,
Right.
short for guys. And I was like, okay, I need to see the I need to see the marquee where they needed to make it shorter than guys, right? Like that marquee had to be like.
We just thought it would be cool, so they wouldn't really know who we were for sure.
So this was your dad's idea.
Yes.
So I would have thought the reason how I explained it away was you were 14, so it kind of made sense.
Yeah, of course, exactly.
Now that your dad's getting credit for the shortening of guys.
Well, he deserves a lot of credit with my early career. There's no question about that.
So how did he shape everything that was happening for you?
Well, the thing about it is, my dad was the kind of guy, he didn't try to make you do anything. He didn't want you to be like him or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
He completely supported everything I did in music, and my sister was in rodeo, a very successful barrel racer and all that sort of thing. And so he just let it kind of evolve and all that. But the thing I learned when I was very young was this. If you want to get out of town, if you want to really do something special, you've got to write your own material.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you're just like everybody else. And so I was very fortunate to learn how to start writing songs when I was very young. So all the songs that the G's did on our records, we wrote ourselves.
Right.
And so it just went on and on from there as you get older, of course.
What was that education like? Was it all self-taught?
Well, I took
was there a mentorship there somewhere?
Well, actually, I took one guitar lesson, and I thought, you know what, I don't need this guy.
Yeah.
And so I kind of taught myself. And another cool thing about it is, too, if you're writing your own songs, you don't have to learn somebody else's songs.
That's right.
And
you don't have to share either.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But true story. Our very first show with the G's, we were playing on a flat bed trailer in Sanger, Texas, with hay all over it, and we needed 2 songs. Okay? So we got up, played our songs, and we went off, and people went crazy. Mm-hmm. And they said, one more song. And I said, we don't know this song. He said, play this. My very first show, I wrote the song to play for our encore.
Mm-hmm.
2 chords. Da, 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 and we played it.
Mm-hmm. I think every band in Texas's genesis starts with a flatbed trailer somewhere.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Somewhere.
We were just on one.
Exactly.
So
that's how far we've come.
So it's not just the genesis that includes that
That's how far
story.
we've come.
Yeah. Well, you know how it is. You always come up and go down the same way, right?
Yeah.
Well, I surely hope not.
Oh, me too. Yeah, because a lot of y'all deserve a lot more than that for sure. You talk about songwriting. I want to get into you becoming a replacement for somebody else a little bit later where you weren't performing your own songs, which is going to be, I think, an interesting part of your story. But I want to stay with Mike as well. We talked about lessons from Dad with him. What were some lessons that you gained from your mom and dad?
Well, my dad was a World War II bomber pilot.
Right.
So he was tough as nails. I mean,
high work ethic.
But he was just an incredible person because he stood behind me in anything I wanted to try. He even let me grow my hair long in high school when that was kind of not what he was into.
Mm-hmm.
But he was supportive and so was my mom. And but he was the kind of the guiding force to get me, motivated to do things. I was motivated to learn to play the guitar, but not the first one I got.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was motivated, but I found out my bicycle. And
that's a hilarious story. Again, so his first guitar, he decided it was better utilized to be pulled behind your bicycle, right? So what was the thought process?
I drug it around the Air Force Base in Itazuki, Japan. And, of course, we got to race go-karts over there. And that's how I started racing, was the go-karts over there. But I got this guitar and I thought I wanted to learn because my brother had learned to play it when he was in the hospital. He had a rare bone disease in his knee and was crippled for a while. And he one of the GIs there gave him a guitar while he was in the hospital, and he learned to play. And I thought, well, he can't do that. I can do that too. So It was a little sibling rivalry there. And
so it was girls with him. It was sibling rivalry.
I had my priorities correct.
Yeah, you did.
Well,
absolutely.
The funny thing about my brother was that he learned to play pretty good, and he played with a band in Northern Virginia when we lived in Annandale.
Mm-hmm.
That ultimately, a couple of those members went on to be in Steely Dan, and he was the keyboard player. Donald Fagen was the keyboard player of that band. And But he was just doing it when he was home from college in the summer. But he loved to play, and he just played rhythm guitar and sang a little bit and stuff. But that got me motivated. He's 7 years older than I am, and I was, I was about 11, I guess, when that was going on, and I got really motivated then after coming back from Japan,
And lucky for you and the rest of us,
yeah.
that he gave you another chance on guitar, even after the first experience didn't go well.
Well, my dad said, "I'll buy you a guitar," and we bought $100. It was $99.99. It was a Gibson Melody Maker single pickup. Bought it at the Sound Center in Falls Church, Virginia, and he
I've
said,
been there too.
if you learn to play the guitar, I'll buy you a good one. And then a year later, he bought me my 335.
Yeah.
My Blue 335. And
Well, thank gosh he gave you another chance, because man,
yeah. I mean, he, like I said, he was very supportive. He wanted me to follow whatever kind of path I wanted to follow, and he was always supportive about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I want a specific lesson from both of y'all that you learned from Mom.
Wow.
I actually learned a lesson about my mom from my father. And like I said, my father was pretty straightforward disciplinarian, and he used to tell me things all the time. I mean, he had a little saying for almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked back to my mom one day when I got home from school. I was about 11 years old, I guess. And my mom did not get upset, but I did. My dad got home. He came into my bedroom and said, "Hey, Mom says that you've not been very good. You've been talking, being really mean, loud, yelling at her and stuff."
Mm-hmm.
He says, "That doesn't happen around here.
Mm-hmm.
That will never happen again." And to put it lightly, I didn't really need to go to sleep that night.
Mm-hmm.
I got a good slap across the
I think it's
face.
a lesson most of us have been taught with our moms.
And I don't regret lessons like that, because hitting me was probably not the best thing to do. And I've never hit my children, but the fact is that that was kind of, I needed to learn a lesson,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned it, and never did that again.
Bubba?
Well, mine's a little different. Okay. Of course, once again, my mother kind of supported the G's and all that stuff. We had our own little suits made and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to have hair like the Beatles, right? But my hair is real curly anyway. And so I could not get my hair to go down straight so it looked like I had those bangs. And my mother showed me, if I get some dippity-doo and put on there, and then I'd sit under her big old huge hair dryer, I'd look like one of the Beatles.
So it's just all about wanting to be Paul and Ringo and
Yes, absolutely. Are you kidding me?
yeah.
Everybody wanted to be Paul.
Of course. And a lot of people would say Paul, there was a new Paul. We won't get into conspiracy theories.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. That was interesting. I've traveled that rabbit hole. Well, I'll tell you what, some crazy stuff.
No.
One thing I wanted to talk to you, Mike. I'm kind of a Army brat myself, military brat, and I know moving around a lot can kind of mess with you socially. You know that you're going to end up that this is temporary, and you learn over time that this is temporary, and I should be guarded on making friends because I'm probably not going to keep them for very long. How did that shape your existence back?
Well, I don't think I was smart enough at first to remember to actually realize that we were going to move again quickly.
Right.
But we did. I mean, I've lived lots of different places, but you kind of get used to it, and you make friends. A lot of times in the military, you see those same people at other assignments,
That's a fair
other
point,
bases.
Yeah.
And I know when we moved when we came back from Japan, we were in Southern Virginia, and I didn't see anybody. We're at Hampton.
Mm-hmm.
And then they moved my dad to the Pentagon a year later, so we moved to Annandale, Virginia, and I was in I finished 6th grade and going to 7th grade, and I went into auditorium because they would give you your schedule there, and the base commander's son walked in from Itazuki, and of course I figured he was a colonel. My dad was a major at the time, and we played on a baseball team together. So there I had one person I actually recognized in it, which was great.
Right.
And but my experience and just the things I learned being on a military basis, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah. It always taught me to hold on to friendships.
Yeah.
You know, like just really don't you
Mhm.
don't let go of them quite as easily.
Well, I
It's
think it teaches you so much. It teaches you, one, that you're no better than anyone else.
right.
Everybody's in the same, the same situation, and everybody is going to be judged by how well they deal with that,
Mhm.
and I just think it was a great education. I mean, it really was.